Welcome to the Service to Syndication Podcast, where we interview the biggest and most successful real estate entrepreneurs, investors, capital raisers in the world who have worn the uniform of this great country, those who provide services to our men and women in uniform, and other service-oriented professionals to provide you with the tool sets, the mindsets, and the skill sets to help you conquer your dreams and goals in real estate and to use this wealth creation vehicle so you can live a more successful, happy, and fulfilled life of generosity and prosperity. If what you desire is time, lifestyle, and financial freedom, you've come to the right place. We will bring to you the best real estate entrepreneurs who will give you the insights, the knowledge, experience, skills, so you can go out and crush it in whatever real estate asset class you desire. So grab a pencil and paper, sit back, and enjoy the ride on the Service to Syndication Podcast. Hello, my servicemen and women and other service providers. Welcome to another episode of the Service to Syndication Real Estate Podcast. I am your host, Cedric Marlowe. I am a U.S. Navy vet. Here on the Service to Syndication Real Estate Podcast, we interview the most successful real estate entrepreneurs, capital raisers, and investors, where most have donned the uniforms of our great country. We aim to provide the tool sets, the mindsets, and skill sets for you to achieve your personal and business goals while using real estate as a wealth creation vehicle to help you live a more successful, happy, and fun-filled life. I am super excited today because I have with me Mr. Bob Knakal. He is a top-notch commercial real estate investor. But before I properly introduce our exciting guest to you, please, I want to ask a favor of you. If you get some type of insight, mindset shift, if you learn a new skill, receive information, motivation to go out and take some progress, please share this episode with some of your friends. Send it to someone you know who might be or could be interested in real estate. Share it on your social media, post it on your wall, or share it in your stories. Help us spread our message while you help others. And for all of you who shared this episode, I want to say thank you. Again, everyone, I have with me Bob Knakal, known as BK, is one of New York City's most accomplished commercial real estate brokers. Since 1984, he has brokered the sale of more than 2,350 buildings, valued at over $23.4 billion. As a co-founder and chairman of Massey Knakal Realty Services, Bob led the firm to dominate the New York City investment sales market for over 2 decades, ultimately selling it to Cushman Wakefield for over $100 million. In 2014, his servant leadership approach helped train and empower a generation of industry leaders. Today, more than 30 companies or divisions are run by Massey Knakal alumni. A recognized thought leader, Bob frequently appears on Fox, CNBC, MSNBC, sharing insights on the real estate market. He now leads BKREA, a next-generation investment sales and capital markets firm that combines best-in-class data with artificial intelligence to redefine brokerage for the modern era. Well, Bob, welcome.
Well, Cedric, great to be with you today. Hello, everybody out there. And I absolutely have to start by saying thank you for your service to the country. Really admire and respect what you and other folks who have served the country in that capacity have done. And so great big thank you from here in New York.
You are welcome. You are welcome. And I know the other service members who have served would say welcome as always. You are welcome. So, Bob, before you became this very successful person I see in front of me, in about 2 to 3 minutes, please give our listeners a little bit of your backstory, like where you grew up, how was your upbringing, and what in your past shifted your mindset into becoming the person you are today.
Well, Cedric, I grew up in a small town in northern New Jersey called Maywood. Maywood was had about a population of 14,000 people when I grew up, and it was a quintessential small town. We used to call it Mayberry, like from the Andy Griffith Show, Mayberry RFD. But it was always after school, going to the park and playing either football or basketball or baseball with my friends, and the 6 o'clock whistle at the firehouse would blow every night, and that was the signal for all the kids to go home and have dinner. And very, very small town upbringing. In fact, Maywood was so small, we didn't even have our own high school. So I had to go to Hackensack High School, because that was the big high school in the area. And I always was a kid who kind of went all in on things, and was very passionate about a number of things, playing sports as a kid, obviously, but collecting baseball cards and shoveling snow and doing stuff like that. I really went all in on the things I did, and then went to Philadelphia for college. I went to the Wharton School at Penn, which I totally loved. And I know you're from Philly, so love Philadelphia. Hope to get down there soon. And then started with CB actually as a summer intern, the summer between freshman and sophomore year in college. I went back and did my next 2 summers there, and then started with CB when I got out of school in 1984. So, and those summer jobs were in Hackensack, but then I started with CB in Manhattan when I got out of school.
Okay. You were talking small town. Look, I'm originally from Arkansas, okay? So trust me, 14,000 people in a town, that was a lot. I mean, I'm from a community where if I told you the name, you Googled it, there's not even a population. So let's not talk small towns. I think I got you beat on that one.
There you go. There you go.
But Bob, so you've been a broker in New York City since 1984. What originally drew you into the commercial real estate space, and how has that industry evolved since you first started?
Yeah, well, Cedric, it was the summer experience. I actually wanted to get a job in banking. In 1981 at the Wharton School, everybody wanted to be an investment banker, as did I. But investment banks and commercial banks were not hiring college kids for the summer back then. But Coldwell Banker was. I actually went into the place thinking it was a bank, dropped off my resume, got hired, and from the start, I absolutely loved it. It was a lot of energy, good vibe in the office, bunch of great people that I worked with. They were really kind to me and taught me a lot, and just developed a real passion for real estate. And then started with CB in Manhattan when I got out of school. And how has it changed? Well, the business is fundamentally exactly the same as it was in 1984. It's just today we have different tools. Mainly technology has changed so dramatically. So if I take you back to me sitting at my desk in 1984, there was no computer on the desk, no cell phone, no fax machine. You would handwrite letters and give them to the secretary to type up to send out to people, and it was a very, very different world. But technology really has changed things. But fundamentally, the business is exactly the same as it was back then.
Okay, great. So now, with over 2,300 building sales under your belt, what would you say has been the most significant change in how deals get done today versus when you got started?
Well, I think that again, the fundamentals are pretty much the same. I think today we have more information. The market has become more transparent because of the ability to manipulate data with technology. So there's more insight into it. I think certainly real estate in general has become a much more mainstream asset class. Back in the 1980s, real estate was more of a cowboy's game. It was a little bit of the Wild West and not quite as mainstream as it is today. The institutional capital is playing a huge part of the way the markets work, and that was not the case back in the 80s. So it has changed in that way. But in terms of getting deals done, I think actually the deal process in some ways is made faster by technology, given you can email, hit the button and send out the thousands of emails in a second. But yet, I think counterintuitively, technology has slowed things down a little bit. I know back in the old days, we would have a meeting of the minds on basic business terms, the price, the deposit, the closing period, what the contingencies might be, if any. And you went over to the seller's attorney's office with the buyer and the buyer's attorney, and they'd sit down, and in 2 or 3 days or one day, you'd get a contract signed. Today, it takes maybe 2 or 3 months in some cases because it goes back and forth over email. And does the receiving party see the email? Did they get it? And yeah, I think in an odd way, technology has slowed the process down a little bit. But deal making is essentially the same again, but different tools at your disposal and some different strategies and tactics, but fundamentally still very, very similar to what it was decades ago.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the fact about the emails going back and forth, and one party may not see the email, because that literally just happened to me this week. Before we started recording, I told you I had a PSA out, and they sent it back to me, and I totally did not even see the email. And luckily, the broker on the other end called me like, "Hey, just want to make sure you saw this." And this was yesterday, actually, and I was like, "Oh, okay, great, thank you."
Yeah, I
Thanks
mean,
for the
that's one of
call.
the things I think that, when we first started getting email, it was great and the efficacy was very, very high. But today we get so much junk in our email box. Everybody's getting hundreds of emails a day, and a lot of stuff gets missed. So I think more than ever, back to getting people on the phone, texting people, I think is better than emailing. And, good old fashioned hard mail is still a great way to communicate with people.
Totally agree. So, Bob, what are some of the lessons you learned early on that still guide your approach to brokerage and leadership today?
Yeah, well, one of the lessons I'm often asked, what were some of the mistakes I made? And I made hundreds of mistakes, mainly because we did a lot of things by trial and error back in the early days. And I think had I asked more experienced people for advice, I would have avoided making a lot of those mistakes. So, we learned over the years to ask people who had been there and done that for their advice on how to handle a certain situation rather than trying on your own and learning from those mistakes. But I think, there's a lot of information out there. A lot of people have gone through exactly what you're going through. And if you seek those people out, I think you'll be surprised to see how accommodating people will be with giving of their time and information to help you in your career.
Nice. Yep. Relationship business for sure.
Yeah, I always say we're not in the real estate business. We're in the information and relationship business. And
Totally.
having the ability to speak to folks who have been there and done that is a great way to save time and not make mistakes that are very obvious that you'd make.
Yeah. So, Massey Knakal Realty Services became a powerhouse in New York City real estate. What was the driving philosophy behind its success?
Well, two things mainly. Number one, the realization of how important information was and realizing that we really weren't in the real estate business, we were in the information business.
Okay.
So we had unbelievably strong databases and collected information, knew that that was a key. So we had a very unique approach to the business. We had a senior broker working in each neighborhood. We called them territories. And they were responsible for getting to know everything that was happening in that area. And that level of information and data was created the ability for us to differentiate ourselves from other brokers. And that differentiation led to a competitive advantage and was really, really helpful. I mean, from the CoStar came into the market in 2001, And from 2001 to 2014, when we sold the company, the number two company in New York had sold about 1,300 properties. And again, we were just a little popcorn stand working in one market, competing with regional, national, and global firms. And the number two firm, which was a national firm, had sold about 1,300 properties. We sold over 4,000. So we lapped the field by more than 3x for 14 years in a row. And I think it was because of that great level of information that we had. And we produced a lot of market reports and intelligence on the market and shared that with people. And they knew that we knew the market better than anybody else did. And that was a big differentiator. So, even today, today I have my Knakal map room, where we have a big map that's 24 feet long and 10 feet wide that identifies every development site that's under construction, every property that's been demolished, every site that is built to less than 25% of its max density, potential assemblage sites, comparable sales. And so you look at that resource, and it's very clear that we have better information on the market than anybody else.
Yeah. There's this thing that you hear in real estate, focus, focus on a specific area. And it sounds like that was one of the things that helped Massey Knakal to gain that competitive advantage over some of the larger companies that are out there that are nationwide companies.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's very powerful to go into a client. And again, our value proposition was very narrow.
Okay.
We only sold property. We only represented sellers. We only worked on exclusives and only worked in New York. Only worked in our territories. And so, we'd go into a client and they'd say, "Hey, you guys are a young upstart company. I'm talking to these other more established companies that have bigger footprints and, they've sold a ton of property." He said, "Yeah, maybe they sold a ton of property, but we sold the one down the block, the one across the street, and the one right next door to you. And we know this market better than anybody, and we could be a better advocate for you in terms of convincing buyers why they should pay more for your property." And that resonated with people, and that's what got us the traction that we got. And that's why, to 3x the competition, show me a market anywhere in the country where even for 1 year, a company does 3 times the volume as its closest competitor. And then show me a company that did that for 14 years in a row. That's a remarkable record, and really we were able to do that because of the quality of the data that we had.
Yeah, 14 years in a row, that's a huge feat. Yeah, most people can't do it 2 or 3 years in a row, let alone 14 years in a row. Yeah. So, Bob, I mentioned in your bio servant leadership. So, can you unpack that? What does that look like in practice within a competitive environment?
Sure. Well, servant leadership at its core, and this is a management style that was developed by Robert Greenleaf in the 1970s. And it basically says, you want to create an environment where your employees can do better than you. And so the way people are able to achieve their maximum results is by, number one, being trained. And so we had intensive training, initial success training, continued training. And when you train somebody, it does two things. One, it gives them the tools and the ability to compete effectively. But number two, it shows them that you really care about them and you're interested in their personal growth and their effectiveness. So we focused on training. Number two, building up somebody's self-esteem and instilling confidence in them. And when you do that, if you really believe in yourself and you can believe you can do it, there's a saying, if you think you can or think you can't, you're right. And you have to believe you can do it. And so we built people's self-esteem. We gave them feedback constantly. And when people believe that they can do it, they perform much better than if they're uncertain or they think maybe they can't. So that style is what really emboldened people. and built some of the best real estate professionals in the city today. And I'll tell you that, we had that track record of 3xing the competition for 14 years in a row. I'm proud of that. As you mentioned in the intro, we sold the business for 100 million bucks. I'm proud of that. But by far and away, the thing I'm the most proud of, and the legacy of Massey Knakal that continues to this day, is today there are actually 34 companies or divisions of companies that are owned by or run by people that learn the business at Massey Knakal. I think that's an unprecedented record, and something I'm extraordinarily proud of, and love to see the folks that we grew, flourish, and to know that you had a small part in tangibly changing people's lives for the better is a tremendously rewarding thing.
Yes, yeah. The only other firm that I can remotely think about company that had that many people leading divisions or companies is GE under Jack Welch. So that's literally putting you guys up there on that stage with GE and that leadership of Jack Welch. I mean, that is remarkable to say.
Well, thanks. Thanks.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, that's what is driving me today. My new company, BKREA. We have a great bunch of folks that I know in the future they're going to have their own businesses, or they're going to be running divisions of companies, because they are excellent. We're training them well, and and making them believe in themselves. And again, that every time we add to that 34 number, it's a tremendous amount of pride that I have in that.
Okay. All right. So now, what are some of the mistakes you see brokerage leaders make when trying to scale a team or a company?
Well, I think you have to have clear rules. I think number one, everybody has to be on the same program. You can't have special deals for people with regard to splits or compensation or anything like that. You also have to have clear responsibilities so that folks are not cannibalizing each other. So I think product specialization is a great way to delegate responsibility with a geographic overlay. I don't think that geographic only is the way to go today because of the amount of publicly available information, but I think product specialization is a great way to do things with a geographic parameter laid over it. And I think you just want to create an environment where each additional person you bring in can be accretive to everybody. If you have a platform that enables that, and it's not viewed as, oh, the next person coming in is just going to cannibalize, my business, that doesn't work. That's not scalable. So you have to have a platform and rules that allow for a growth and scale, and that comes down to how the strategy is implemented for the company and what the company's value proposition is.
Okay. All right. For our listeners who may not be familiar with the nuances of investment sales, how would you describe what differentiates it from traditional brokerages?
Well, it's very simple, Cedric. And what I will tell you, when I describe the investment sales brokerage business to people who are not in the real estate business, I describe it this way. I say, let's assume you and I are going to go start a company in Iceland to sell rocks. And what would we do? Well, we'd go to Iceland and we'd make up a list of everybody that owns rocks, and then we'd make up a list of everybody that wants to buy rocks. Then we do some research on the rock market. How many of each different type of rock are there? How valuable are they? What do they typically sell for? And then once we really understood the market, we'd go call the people who own the rocks and ask them if they would hire us to sell the rocks for them. And if they hired us to sell the rocks, we'd call the people that buy rocks. That's the business, plain and simple. And so, I think our approach has always been to represent sellers. Most brokers represent buyers and sellers. We think there's a conflict of interest there. So we just decided to work on one side of the table. And because of that, We never have conflicts of interest. We also never have to remember what we say to anybody because all we're doing is trying to get the highest possible price all the time. And that keeps things simple, clear, conflict free. And that essentially is the investment sales business, is that rock brokerage business that I just described. That's investment sales.
When I find somebody with a lot of rocks that need to have them sold, I'm gonna give you a call. You'll be the first call.
There you go. Thanks.
Yeah. So you've had a front row seat at multiple real estate cycles. What patterns or indicators do you look for when assessing market health in New York City?
Yeah, well, we generally look for two things to determine shifts in the market. We look at two sectors, and those sectors are the hotel market and the land market. Why those two sectors? Over the course of time, they've been most predictive of swings in the market. Hotels, why? Because hotels have leases for one day. So they're highly, highly reactive to changes in the market conditions. And land, why land? Well, land, because land is a proxy for what the development community believes market conditions are going to be like 3 or 4 years from today, when what they're building is going to be finished and they'll have to sell it or rent it, or what they're going to do with the building. So those two sectors are things we look at very, very closely to try to figure out where the market's headed. So that's historically, those have been pretty good indicators of how things are going to go in the future.
Okay. All right. All right. Yeah, I've never heard anyone mention, of course, the hotel market definitely that's been a big indicator, but the land market, that's a new one that people track that, and that's a huge indicator what's going to happen or what they may see happening in the near future. Yeah. So let me ask you this one other question along that line. We all know the Great Recession of 2008. Did you guys foresee that coming in these indicators?
Nope, nope, didn't see that coming. The GFC was a challenging time, but it's important to remember that the market always has been, is, and always will be cyclical. And we've seen downturns. We lived through the savings and loan crisis in the early 90s,
Mhm.
the recession in the early 2000s, the GFC, the Great Slog, which is the period that we just came through recently. And it's always changing. You have to always keep an eye on it and try to adapt to changes in the market. You want to stay true to your core principles and your operating procedures, but you have to constantly adapt to a changing environment.
Got it. So now, given today's high interest rate environment and evolving capital markets, where do you see opportunities emerging in New York City commercial real estate?
Yeah, well, in New York, I think it's a great buying opportunity, and you can't really talk about the New York market without breaking it down to talk about individual sectors, because today, uniquely, different sectors are moving in different directions at the same time. And even within product types, you have different classes of buildings within those sectors that are moving in different directions at the same time. A lot of which has to do with public policy, like
Mm.
our housing market in New York is more highly correlated to public policy than supply and demand, even. So you have to be aware of what politicians are doing, what policymakers are doing, how those changes are going to impact things. But I think it happens to be an unbelievable buying opportunity in New York today, because there are several sectors where you can buy buildings on a price per square foot basis that are the same as they were 25 or 30 years ago. Never seen that ever. But there are a number of reasons why that's the case. But I think it's a great buying opportunity if you have the courage to buy in what seems like a challenging market today in some sectors.
Okay. All right. So how do you advise investors or brokers to think about value and risk in today's urban real estate landscape?
I think it all comes down to what your risk tolerance is.
Okay.
Clearly, you want bigger returns, you have to take on more risk. You want less risk, you're going to have lower returns. That's the old risk return trade-off that you read about in an economics textbook. But I think there are great opportunities out there. I think Manhattan is very underpriced today. I think if you look at the city and the future of the city, how the city will grow, I think that the City Planning Commission has been doing this for decades, but I think it will accelerate in the years to come of increasing density around transportation hubs and
Hmm.
around transportation and lowering densities further away from transportation to incentivize development around mass transit. And so, there are some fundamental things that I think make sense from an investor's point of view. And although we don't represent buyers, we have these conversations with folks every day, and we're just trying them to pay as much as possible for the stuff that we're selling. But there are a lot of reasons why people should jump into the market today.
Yeah, I know like here in the Philadelphia market, most people want to be one train ride, one bus ride away from, let's say, their office or wherever they live. That's all they really want to do. So I understand, what you mean about being around the transportation hubs that make it easier for people to get in and get out from wherever they're going.
Right.
Yep, yep. So we had already mentioned the Massey Knakal professionals that lead firms and divisions. What specific elements of your training or culture do you think created this ripple effect?
Well, I think a couple of things. I think one, the focus on really knowing your craft, knowing the market, studying the market, getting the market data under your fingernails every day, so you really, really became an expert, and then believing in yourself. We always said we want to make people or put people in a position where they could do better than their best.
Mm.
And in order to do that, you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe you can do it. And then you go out and do it a few times, and you really have that belief. And, if you are optimistic and you believe in yourself and you have great tools, there's nothing that you can't accomplish. There's a saying, oh, the sky's the limit in commercial real estate. I don't believe that. I believe there is no limit in commercial real estate.
Okay. Now, what does empowering your team really mean in brokerage context, especially when agents and are usually independent and competitive by nature?
Yeah, well, empowering them, I think, is giving them a specialty to focus on, having them understand what their role is and what the expectations are, and
Mhm.
then giving them tools to go out and really become the expert so that they can articulate their particular value proposition to people in a way they can understand it. You ask people what they do, and if they talk for 3 minutes and at the end of that 3 minutes you still don't know what they do, that's not a very clear value proposition. And somebody says, Bob, what do you do? I sell buildings in New York. I represent sellers. I only work on exclusives. That's it. Took me 6 seconds, nothing vague, very clear. And, I think if you're in a position where you understand your value proposition and everything you do is geared towards reinforcing that position, it makes this business a little easier than it might otherwise be.
All right. Bob, so how do you define success as a leader today compared to, say, 20 or 30 years ago?
I think a lot of the fundamentals are still the same. Again, it's empowering people, having people believe in themselves, giving them direction so they can take advantage of the skills that they have and create new skills that they may not possess or to improve their weaknesses a little bit. But to just encourage them so they can go out and perform at a very high level and understand that if you do these things fundamentally correctly and you keep at it, if you have the discipline to do it. And I always say that the brokers who reach the top of the industry, and this probably goes for investors and everybody in real estate, they all possess three things, three characteristics. One is a very, very deep level of expertise in a particular subject matter. They get to know everything about it and really demonstrate and can provide real value to the folks they work with. Number two, they have to love the business. They have passion, very, very passionate about the business. And you have to have that passion because of the fact that the market always has been, is, and always will be cyclical through no fault of your own. You could be the best broker in the world. You're going to have tough times. And it's the love of the business that keeps you there, keeps you slugging away every day, so that you can be there for the inevitably better times that will come back. A lot of people during tough times just abandon the business. If they abandoned the business, they really didn't love it enough. So you got to have that passion. And thirdly, you have to be able to use discipline well. And, being in the service, you guys, you're all highly, highly disciplined. That's awesome. And I always say you have to use discipline well. The interesting thing about discipline is that every human being has access to the same exact amount of discipline, but we all choose to use it differently. And you have to be able to use discipline to do those fundamental things that may be a little boring at times and a little monotonous and not so glamorous, but you got to keep doing them day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And if you're doing fundamentally the correct things, eventually that'll work for you. And I love the quote from Abe Lincoln, who said that discipline is choosing between what you want now and what you want most. And I often think about that, and that guides the way that you approach things. And so those are the three things that we tried to, as a leader, make people focus on. Be an expert. You have to love it. You can't make someone love it. They have to love it themselves. So I tell young people or people who are just getting into the business, expose yourself to as many different aspects of the business as possible and pick the one that you really love, because you have to love it. And then, the use of discipline is something that can be taught. It's not something that we either have or don't have. It's a tool like any other tool, and you have to use it and know how to use it and be reminded to use it all the time. So that quote from Lincoln is something that sticks with me. I think about that all the time when I'm tempted to go off course a little bit, and I try to keep my eye on the big picture.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Let's hop back to BKREA for a second. What inspired you to blend analog data sets with artificial intelligence, and how is that changing the way brokerages are done today?
Yeah, well, I think the old analog data sets we have are terrific. They're over 40 years old. The methodology for calculating the data is completely the same as it was. So the integrity between the numbers within that data set is very high. And as I said, when I started in the business, I had no computer, no cell phone, no fax machine. The world has changed so much, but I realized that as much as the world has changed over the past 40 years, it's probably going to change to an even greater extent over the next 5, based on AI and the different technological tools that we have today. So the first person I hired for the new firm was Seth Samowitz, my COO, who is an AI guy. He started AI companies. He worked in driverless cars for 6 years. And I said, hey, if this guy can make a car drive itself, he can help me sell a building. So, very keenly aware that technology is super important, but you could have the best algorithms and the best AI models in the world, but if you're putting bad information into it, you're not going to get a good result. So the combination of the two is extraordinarily powerful.
Yeah. They say good data in, good data out. So I understand. Now, what advice would you give to someone just starting out in commercial real estate brokerage today?
And be a specialist. Pick one thing and try to become the best in the world at it. If you read Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, which is a fantastic book,
Mhm.
he says that the main difference between good companies and great companies is that the great company identifies what they can or want to do better than anybody else in the world, and every decision they make is geared towards achieving that objective. Whether they get Coke or ginger ale in the kitchen, they think about, okay, we want to be the best in the world at this. Does that decision, does it matter? Is it going to impact getting to that place? And so I think in the same way, you want to identify what it is you can be better than anyone else at. And when you identify that, try to achieve that position. Think about it. If everybody in Philly said, hey, if you're going to do a deal that's of type X, you have to go to Cedric because he's the best person in the whole market for that type of deal, you've achieved a great position, and you've turned a deal where most people live deal to deal into an annuity.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what do you think separates top performing brokers from the rest of the pack?
I think those three things that I mentioned earlier. It's their level of expertise, their love for the business, and their ability to use discipline well. And by use discipline, the best illustration I can give you is the Stonecutter's Creed. And the Stonecutter's Creed is pound the rock, pound the rock. And what that means is, the stonecutter comes into the shop in the morning, sits in front of a big rock and pulls out a mallet and whacks the thing, 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, 50 times, 75 times, 99 times, nothing has happened. 100th blow, boom, the rock splits in half. And to the casual observer in the back of the room, they say, oh, that 100th one must have been different. He must have used a different mallet, or he hit it harder, or it was a different angle. But the stonecutter knows, no, it was exactly the same as the 99 that came before it. It's just the 99 that came before it allowed that 100th one to work. And in the same way, again, it's so important that if you're doing fundamentally the right things, but if you're doing the right things, you keep doing them over and over and over and over again, eventually the rock is going to split in half for you and you'll succeed.
I like it. So, Bob, as we come to the end of this podcast, I have one final question for you. Looking back at your career, what accomplishment are you most proud of, and what do you still hope to achieve with BKREA?
Well, without a doubt, it's the 34 companies or divisions of companies that are run by people that we taught the business to. Knowing that you had a small part in changing the direction in the lives of people is tremendously powerful. And in terms of where I want to go in the future, look, I love this business. It's my job. It's also my hobby. I'd love to get to 3,000 buildings sold. As of last week, it's 2,363. I'd love to get to 3,000, and I'd love to add to that list of 34 companies or divisions of companies. And based on the folks I'm working with today, I know without a doubt that number is going to grow.
I like it. Great way to end the podcast. Well, Bob, it has been a blast having you as our guest today. And as we close out, please tell our listeners where we can learn more about you, get in touch with you, and learn about all the fabulous things you have going on right now.
Sure. Well, Cedric, I'm on all social media platforms, so you can follow me there, or you can email me at bk@bkrea.com, or call me on my cell phone, 917-509-9501. And I'd enjoy hearing from you.
All right. We love it. Awesome, Bob. Again, I want to thank you for your time today and all the wisdom you have provided to my listeners. It's greatly appreciated. And I want to thank you, our fans, for tuning into the Syndication Real Estate Podcast, where we want to add value to you and your investing business. Please tune in to our next episode, where we will interview another fantastic real estate professional. See you next time. Thanks for listening to the Service to Syndication Podcast. We want you to know that we love and appreciate your support, and we are grateful about being a part of your journey to becoming a successful real estate entrepreneur. Please share this episode with a friend who you think will get a lot out of what you just heard. Send it to someone who you know is interested in real estate and dreams of having it all and being the best they can be in all areas of life. And if this was really valuable, share it on your social media stories and timelines. Thank you for watching and listening. Now go be great.